Senator Mullin.
Talk about accountability. I wonder who was held accountable for the disastrous withdrawal out of Afghanistan, where 13 soldiers died and we left thousands of Americans behind underneath Secretary Austin's lead. Did one person get held accountable during that time? I don't know of anybody that got held accountable for Afghanistan withdrawal. But let's talk about that. And let's talk about the turmoil to which my colleagues on the other side of the dais wants to talk about. Let's talk about that turmoil. Underneath Secretary Austin, who was a general, by the way, you had the lowest morale measured in our military history. You had retention absolutely disastrous. You had recruitment that wasn't even meeting lowered standards that you guys lowered. But let me see the contrast now. We have the highest morale that's been measured in decades in the military. We have recruiting numbers that are exceeding expectations that we've had. We have our enemies that fear us once again, and our allies that love us because they can trust us. But that's not the narrative, Secretary Hegseth, that our Democrat colleagues want to draw. But how short-minded is your memory? It was just a few months ago that you were supporting a commander-in-chief that you guys were covering up for or flat out lying about. Who was in charge? And that was a commander-in-chief. Oh, but let's not talk about that. Instead, let's just point fingers at something that fits a narrative. You want to talk about war powers or the fact that during our reposturing in the Middle East against Iran, which would have never taken place if our colleagues on the other side would have held the administration accountable while they were giving billions of dollars back to Iran and knowing good and well during the briefings that they were actually trying to develop a nuclear weapon, but we turned a blind eye to that, and now the mess that was created by the Biden administration, this administration, or the Trump administration, and the leadership of Secretary Hegseth is simply trying to clean up. But forget about the past. Let's talk about this. Oh, let's talk about reposturing, by the way. And wasn't it Secretary of the Navy, Del Toro, that came to us and said that he was fighting the largest naval battle since World War II? Did anybody in this dais authorize that? That was his words, who sat right there where Secretary Hegseth was, and I laughed. And I said, I didn't think the Houthis had a Navy, so why are we fighting a naval battle there? And did you guys complain about it? Did you guys say one thing about it? Nope. You just sat there. Because, hey, it didn't fit your narrative, but this one does. And then anyone want to start talking about the National Guard and the Marines. Didn't President Eisenhower deploy troops or federalized troops in Arkansas in 1957 and also deploy the 101st Airborne because the governor then refused to protect civil rights and personal property? Yep. What about President Kennedy in 62 and 63? That also did it because Mississippi and Alabama refused to do the same thing. And so since the governor at that time refused to protect citizens and the property, he federalized the National Guard. Oh, let's think about 65 too, because LBJ did the exact same thing. But that's history. But yet it's extremely important to the context of what you guys are claiming to be done here. But that doesn't fit the narrative that you guys want to put out there. History is history. Look back at it if you want to or not. But keep in mind, every time you're pointing fingers here, you got three fingers pointing back at you. Because the previous administration, you guys 100% turned a blind eye to and did nothing to hold them accountable. Nothing. So don't sit up here on the dais and pretend like you're trying to hold an administration accountable now because you didn't for 4 years. You literally covered up for a commander-in-chief that was absent. Absent-minded and absent leadership. And you guys did absolutely nothing. Even your left-leaning media is saying it was the worst cover-up possibly in political history. Yet nothing from you guys. You all should be ashamed of yourself. Literally, you should be ashamed of yourself. I yield back.